Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient slash survivor. Been dealing with cancer since late 2020, early 2021, and I am so happy to be here in Texas and to be alive. And the weather is absolutely gorgeous today. It's 86. I had a chance to do a little walk earlier, and I just had a chance to look at how blue the sky was and how warm the sun felt on me as I was walking, and it was just really, really wonderful. And it just reflects back to the time when I um, was able to get out of my house for the first time after 2.5 months, uh, and things were different, and I just appreciate, the little things, and we'll talk about that too. But I have my special guest returning. His name is Mike Starks. This is actually the third interview we've done. We did an interview a couple of years ago when he first started dealing with cancer, and now he's evolved a lot. And we're gonna hopefully get to experience some of that wisdom that he hopes to pass on to all of you. And so let me bring my friend Mike Starks back on, and he's a fellow Texan at the moment. We'll see what happens in the future. Mike, please reintroduce yourself. This is part two of our second set of interviews, and tell us a little bit about who you are and
Sure.
what you do.
Good to see you again, Mark. Mike Starks, 61. I'll be 62 in about 3 weeks, and happily married. I have three grown daughters. Um, Great family. I am a consultant. I basically fly around the country and consult with small businesses, turnarounds, um, and just smaller companies, $5 to $20 million businesses, and so I enjoy doing it. But I had I had retired. I'd sold my last business in 22, and and right after my diagnosis, and so I didn't think I'd ever work again. But I started getting really depressed after I started coming out of my cancer. Through all the treatment and radiation and everything. And so yeah, now I'm a senior consultant and I just travel around and help people.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Let's get
Yeah.
into another great conversation because you've developed so much wisdom and insight into this journey that I'd like to uh, see what we could discover and see what we could do to help and inspire people. And because this
Sure.
channel is all about hope and inspiration. And if people do not believe that they could overcome cancer, then what's the point?
Yeah.
And so, my first question for you, Mike, is how different is your life now as opposed to before you got cancer?
Radically different. Um, from a diet standpoint, I grew up as a Texas boy, loved meat, any kind of meat I loved. But when was diagnosed with stage four, um, and I didn't know why I was going through so much pain. But now I eat a plant-based diet, which I never thought I would. My wife used to tell me a plant-based is the best, but I always thought it was a scam. I was wrong. So, everything that I do from a diet perspective, because I travel a lot, I have to be very careful when I eat something because if it has a lot of preservatives, my body can sense it and it reacts very negatively. And so Mark and you and I were talking the other on the other interview, and you made a comment that's exactly right. That some people can eat meat with stage four and not eat vegetables. Some people can eat only fruit. So you've got to find what fits you. And what fits me is a plant-based diet. And so, that sleep is extremely important. If I don't get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night, I can be in a lot of pain the next day. So, yeah, I've had to really shift my life to where I have to watch what I eat. I have to make sure I go to bed at a certain time. Uh, and I've told my wife many times, I feel like I'm being antisocial because while I want to go out to eat, I'm very afraid to because even a lot of the vegetables that we eat can have pesticides, things like that on there. And so that's from a diet perspective. From a relationship perspective,
Let's
yeah,
pause a
yeah.
second as far as diet. So, do you cook for yourself, or you assemble, or yourself? Do you eat much cooked food, or mostly salads, or explain that, please?
Well, when I'm traveling, I eat a lot of salads. Okay.
Hmm.
And but when I'm at home, yes, I'll cook a lot of vegetables, but I only buy organic because it does make a difference. And I think, I haven't looked this up or studied this, but I think because when we have stage four, Mark, our body is a lot more sensitive and it can't fight a lot of the basic elements that it could before our cancer, right? And so, yeah, so I'll cook if I can get organic, but I'm typically eating salads most of the time.
I mean, I never thought you could make. I mean, I come to the point where I can make a really, really great salad,
Oh
and you're
yeah,
just, yeah, I mean, if you take the time and, put the effort into putting together a great salad, it's really, really good.
it
Um,
is. It
and
is.
you come to appreciate it, the taste of things being fresh and being clean, and you can actually taste it. And you mentioned that you actually feel it if there's preservatives or things like that in what you're eating. And
Yeah.
do you have like, I mean, do you feel it like pretty quickly if you're eating something that doesn't have something that you agree with?
If it's meat, it takes 36 to 48 hours. If it's like bad French fries, and when I say bad French fries, I'm talking like McDonald's because it has all the preservatives in it. And I'll tell you, before cancer, I didn't think twice about any of that. But now, if I eat just potatoes and oil and salt, I'm totally fine. But if I eat French fries at a fast food restaurant that has all the preservatives, it kills me. And I feel that within 12 hours or so.
It takes
So,
that long for you to feel it?
yeah, yeah,
Wow. Huh.
yeah.
Because I could feel it if I eat something, if that's why also I don't go out as much as I used to, and I get a lot of flack over it. Hey, you never want to go to the restaurants, but when you prepare it at home, you know exactly what's going in there. You have no idea what's being put in your food when you go to a restaurant. I mean, all
That's
they're
right.
interested in is it tastes good. They're
That's
not
right.
interested is it healthy for that person we're putting that plate in front of.
That's right. Yeah, I've eaten at some very nice restaurants and been in pain for 3 or 4 days after eating at these nice restaurants. So you're right, Mark. You just don't know what they're putting in it.
Hmm. Yeah. So when I got diagnosed with cancer, especially at the beginning, that beginning is a very, very difficult time. I was actually like in a fog for
Yes,
probably a couple of months where I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know who to believe. I didn't, my doctor tells me I'm going to die. Um, but in my mind, I was like, you know, death is not an option here. I'm going to live. So, what kind of state were you in when you got diagnosed?
Well, the first interview, I think I told you I went out in my car for about an hour and sat there. After I shared with my family, I would wake up every day and I had a new hip and then a 10-inch rod go down to my femur because my femur was broke and my hip had been eaten through by the cancer. So I was in a lot of pain there. So after I got over that pain, which took a couple of months, I realized that, you know, as I told you the other day, my wife and I and my daughters we cried for a couple of months, and we realized that crying does absolutely no good. And so, if I wouldn't have met you and the community that you're involved in, we were talking about this earlier. I would probably, because honestly, when you get stage four, suicide is an option. And most people think, oh, how could you say that? Well, when you have stage four cancer, it's terminal. And when you have the painful days, you just want it to end because you know your life's going to end anyway. But as I said earlier, is it going to be 6 weeks or 16 years? We don't know. So I went through a range of emotions, Mark, that, and I honestly credit you and my wife and my doctor because as I told you earlier, my nuclear medicine doctor told me, he said, look, he goes, I know everything about cancer. I've gone to school and I've done everything, but I don't know about cancer and how it affects you because I don't because he said, I don't have cancer. So there's this whole emotional, psychological side of cancer that's very scary. It's very lonely. Um, and it's it's so surreal because you wake up one day and you have stage four cancer and you think for a while you're in disbelief. Why me? I've been in great health all my life. How did this happen? And you try to blame things or the vaccine or whatever, but you have to finally realize that you are where you are and you got to make the best of it. And so that's kind of the
How
range
long
of
did
it.
that take for you for that to happen?
Probably about 4 months.
Mm.
Probably about 4 months because I met you right after I'd been diagnosed, probably about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks after I'd been diagnosed. And as I told you, I was very disheartened because I'm on YouTube and on Google trying to find how can I survive? How can I extend my life? How can I be pain free? Um, and most of the people either wanted money or they were kind of kooky. And so I found a couple of people, you being one of them, that I felt was sincere, and you didn't ask for money. Uh, and so I think the important turning point for me was the help that you gave me with all the different stuff you did, and then number two, the forum, talking to other people who have gone through this several years ago, and they're alive telling their story. And that hope, I can't stress how much hope is so important. When okay, I've got stage four, you accept it. Talk to people like you, Boyd, uh, who have lived with it for years, and you're doing pretty good. And that to me was probably, I would say, my saving grace because yeah, there are times when you go, you know what, I could just take my life now. And I know if people don't have cancer, they can't, it's hard for them to understand this. But when you have stage four and you feel hopeless, that's why the hope that that you and your group gave me was amazing. And then my wife, wow, my wife is just Wonder Woman, and our relationship is just amazing. I mean, I've never had a relationship with anybody like this in my life now. And we've been together almost 30 years, you know. So she helped me through a lot and she would push me and, threaten to kill me if I died, that type of deal. So yeah,
See, you're a dead man walking either way.
that's right. That's right.
Uh, talk about the complexity of cancer, because cancer is really complex. Um, and how did you learn about that, and how did you deal with the complexities?
Yeah. I owned a weight loss food company for 15 years, and I was very educated and knowledgeable about food and what makes you obese and what's good, what's bad. So I felt like I had a head start, Mark, when I asked my doctor, who I trust eminently, but I asked him, can I eat sugar or donuts or whatever? He goes, you can eat whatever you want. And that's when I realized he's a nuclear medicine doctor. He's not a bariatric or health doctor. He's a nuclear medicine doctor. And so I approached it from the standpoint and I'll tell you a story. There was a friend of my wife's whose sister had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at about the same time. And she weighed about 200 pounds overweight. And we were talking to my wife's friend one night, and I asked her, I said, what's your sister? Has she changed her diet? And she said, no, she refuses to change her diet. She eats a big bowl of banana pudding every night. And I thought, this can't be good. Well, she's dead today. She's passed.
Mm.
Um, and and you see these let me step back. The complex part of cancer for me was you go through a range, or I went through a range of emotions where I was confused, I was sad, I was mad, I had a pity party. I've got one doctor telling me to do this, and I hear people on YouTube telling you to do that. And before you put chemotherapy in your body, the poison, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing, right? And so, excuse me. Um, I think the most complex part of cancer for me was trusting because my doctor told me one time, I said, on the days that I feel great and I have no pain, is my cancer still eating away at me? And he said, yes, it is. And he said, if you're doing well and you're living healthier, it's eating away slower. But when you have stage 4, you have stage 4, right? And I'll tell you that those types of moments for me, Mark, uh, it's tough for me to hear that because I feel like I'm doing all the right things, but yet at the same time, I know it can never be healed. It can just be slowed down, right? So that's the most complex part for me was figuring out what worked for me and cutting through all the stuff on the internet because there's so much. I mean, I know now we talked about this the other day that there's a lot of frauds on the internet who claim to have cancer. They raise a lot of money, but but yeah, for me, it was just going through the range of emotions and figuring out what worked for me and who I could trust.
And that's a difficult thing. It
Very
really is.
difficult.
Um, because the way I went about it was I used LinkedIn to reach out to people all over the world. And I was basically, interviewing all these different people and I took, extensive notes about what each person did. And then
Hmm.
I put them all on the table and I started putting it together. And that's how I put together my plan. And I think it's always a good thing when you have somebody guiding you, and advising you that you trust. And to establish that trust is not necessarily the easiest thing at all. How long did it take for you to accept your new normal?
Ooh, a year, 14 months, 15 months. I mean,
Wow.
it, because I think part of it, Mark, I didn't want to let go of meat. I love meat. And so, as I said, I would see one person that would be eating tons of red meat and their cancer would go away. Then I'd see a person that's eating only vegetables and their cancer would go away. And I would try both. And the problem is when I would try the vegetables, I wouldn't try them long enough to where I wasn't eating meat. So if I'd eat meat every 3 or 4 days, my body would just go into shock. And so after about a year, year and 2 months, I finally realized every time I eat meat, I call it cancer creep. It goes down my legs and up my spine because I have spots in my spine and my ribs. And so once I figured out, like right now today, I don't feel anything. I feel great. And so, to get to that point, to really have clarity and to understand and accept, okay, this is the new norm. It's going to be fine. Let's just try to live without pain. Um, and so, yeah, and I think it differs with everybody, right?
Oh, no question.
Some people never experience it or accept that it's the new norm, and they continue to eat and drink and do everything they are smoking, whatever, you know. But yeah, I think and as I told you, as a believer in Christ, I'm not afraid about dying as I am about being without my wife and my kids. That to me, so thank God when we cross the other side, there will be no sorrow or tears, right? And so, but yeah, so yeah, 14 months or so when I had to finally accept that it's the new norm.
It's- That's a long time of turmoil
Yeah, it
to
is.
come to that. What advice would you give a newly diagnosed cancer patient so that they could, as quickly as possible, adapt to their situation?
Reach out to Mark, to you. And I'm being sincere to reach out, find somebody. When you get diagnosed, you're going to spend 1,000 hours on YouTube and Google, unless you don't care about life. But most people, because we know absolutely nothing about cancer, and so I do feel that God opened a door for me with Mark, with you, because um, I was hopeless. And I just needed somebody to say, it's going to be okay. Here's what I did that helped me. And I want to help you. And I'm going to call you every once in a while, every 2 or 3 days, reach out to you, make sure you're okay. And I've got this group of people that you can talk to. And to me, Mark, that was probably the biggest thing that helped me. And I've told you before, I feel like you saved my life, um, because if I would never have met you, and I would not have changed my lifestyle so radical, and met other people that you've introduced me to that's had cancer. It's a lonely time when you have cancer. When you're diagnosed with cancer, you kind of want to go into a cave and just die a lot of days, right? And so to have somebody that you can reach out to, like you, or somebody you feel like you can trust, is probably the most important thing. And even though my wife is my best friend and I love her, she can't relate fully to what we're going through, right? Because they see our pain and they feel it and they hear it, but they don't know all the fear and anxiety that we're living through. And so talking to you or other people in the forum was probably the most important aspect of when I was first diagnosed, because that's what gave me hope. And just having an ounce of hope when you've been told you have stage 4 cancer is worth a trillion dollars. Because you know, okay, I may not be dead in 6 days. At least I know I'll have another 2 or 3 years, hopefully. So finding those little nuggets of hope, and that's what you and your forum really gave to me.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing that information with everybody. I think it's can be. I always think about my sister. My sister passed from cancer, and she was basically like a hermit, and just didn't want to see anybody. And I've told this story before, and we had a fight to see her before she passed, and we
Hmm.
finally did see her, and that left such a strong, it etched in my mind, about and I thank her because I used her as an example of what I was not going to do if I ever got cancer.
Hmm.
And so I did the complete opposite. I thought, here my sister was, she was the quote unquote healthiest person in our family. I mean, she ate well and she was always, very concerned about every little detail about her health. And
Yeah.
yet she got really, really bad cancer. I mean, where it came from, it's, still open to speculation.
Hmm. Yeah.
But what you just mentioned is such an important thing. Is I've been talking to this one guy on Facebook, and he's all about crawling under a rock and just hiding and calling it a day. And to me, that's just not helpful because you're
Right.
part of disease is what we hold in internally.
It's a great point. Yeah.
I used hypnotherapy as a way to release these things. And uh, did you use anything like that to help you, forgive people and forgive situations in order to, you know, uh, help yourself
Right.
mentally?
Yeah, I never used hypnotherapy. Um, but my wife, you guys gave me strength and hope, and my wife was just so strong. And that made all the difference in the world because, like this guy that there are days where you just want it to be over, where you're laying in bed, you're in so much pain, you're just like, God, please just let it take me. And so I always felt that, it's hard for people that don't have cancer, if they're listening to this, to understand it, right? But I always felt like, God, if you'll give me an extra day, I'll make the most of it. I will promise you, I will make the most of it, and I will not complain about the silly little things that I've complained about for 58 years, right? And so I tried to approach it from just a gratefulness. And that's why I tell everyone, in a lot of ways, I think cancer has been a blessing because of my wife and my daughters, and it's brought us close together. So for me, that hypnotherapy side for me was my wife and I just, we're so strong now, so strong. And, I can't imagine going through it alone. And I remember when I was going to the oncologists all the time, and I would see people come in there alone, and it breaks your heart because
Yes.
they have nobody, you know. And so, yeah, so I never did the hypnotherapy, Mark. I tried to, I do think God put my wife um, in my life for a reason because she's so strong and encouraging. And that probably to me was the counseling that I needed was through her, you know, through her love and her strength.
That's great. So you have three daughters. Three daughters? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
What is the most important thing to you that you want to leave them about you?
You know, I've never been a legacy person. Oh, I want my legacy to be this I grew up in a pretty terrible home with a horrible father, and he left when I was 12. And I would see my friends who had fathers that were good fathers, and I remember as a boy thinking that's what normal looks like. And so when I became a believer when I was 17 in high school, and I prayed for years, God, all I want is a family, just a normal family, not a perfect family, but a normal family where we cry, we love, we argue respectfully, and where we forgive and heal together. And to me, because I've often thought about that, and I think when we have stage four, we often think, what are going to be my last words to my kids? I mean, I don't, do you think that or ever feel that way sometimes?
No, because I've pretty much said those kind of things. Yeah, I'm not. What cancer has taught me is you can't hold back and save things. You've
Yeah,
just got to use today, and if you are feeling a certain way and you want them to know, you got to tell them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's just my perspective on that. I mean, one of the things I did with my younger daughter is I did one of these kind of interviews with her. The
Okay.
and uh, and I said, we're not going to post it. It's your gift and your choice to do whatever you want to do with it, whenever you want
Mm,
to do with it. And so I just think that uh, as we live, we just, we need to tell the people and not hold back because
mm,
if you love them, tell them you love them. If you are feeling something, and one of the things I've learned is not to let things grow and fester. Get on it
yeah, that's right.
right away because life is too short. You just
Yes,
cannot wait to tell
that's
people
right.
because either you or them may not
Yeah,
be around when you're ready.
yeah,
So make time for to be ready as soon as possible.
yeah. And that's such great wisdom, Mark. With my daughters, they're old enough now. We look at them, and our oldest daughter is going to get engaged soon, but they're great kids. They've turned out to be wonderful kids. They're happy. They love life. And so, as a parent, that's all we can hope for, right? Is that our kids grow up healthy and happy.
Mhm.
And there are harrowing times through those teenage years that just, are really difficult. But I look at my family, my wife, when I pass, will be fine. Um, my kids will be fine. Um, and and I honestly hope that my wife, once I pass and she grieves, I hope she meets the greatest guy in the world and he makes her happy and they can travel and, do all those things that she wants to do. And I really do hope that. And, if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I said no. But once we've gone to a place, it's so hard to explain because if people are watching this and they don't have cancer, they just it just doesn't make a lot of sense, you know? And I I I just, with my wife and my daughters, they're going to be great. And so that's what I hope is that when I pass on, they're mature enough now, they're old enough now they're making good decisions. And I just want them to be happy. And when they think of dad, that they'll have a good memory, you know? And I can honestly say, my father was an alcoholic and not a very good person. Um, and so, yeah, so I feel like I've done a good job as a parent. Uh, and I'm just grateful for my family and my kids.
That is beautiful. I mean, Mike, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, opening up your heart and sharing with us. I mean, it's so important for everybody to hear this and to hear what your honest answers, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you. Uh, and I want to thank you for all the time that we've spent, and and it's an honor for me to call you my friend. And I'm so glad that we've evolved over these last couple of years to the point where we could laugh together and look back and
Well,
look back fondly with where you started from. And I'm so glad that you're still with us today and that you have the confidence that you do. It just means the world to me. So thank you.
well, thank you, Mark. And if anybody's watching this, I beg you, if you have cancer or someone that you know has cancer, reach out to Mark. Just reach out to Mark. He will make a huge difference in your life or, whoever's struggling with cancer. Um, I can't stress it enough. Mark doesn't make a dime off of this. He does this. This is all voluntary, and that's why I'm so amazed that he's been so persistent with me, and I just love him to death. But if you're struggling or you know someone that's struggling, reach out to Mark.
And we also, and I'd like to mention at this time, we have a group called the Cancer Conquering Community. We meet every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern on Zoom, and that's a great place for people to come to connect with patients and survivors and doctors and nurses and nutritionists, and it's just a wonderful place to experience what other people are going through because
Hmm.
r- really, we all think what we're going through is the worst, and it's not necessarily the case because there's so many people that have gone through so much worse. I mean, I know so many
Mm.
people and yeah, so I highly suggest joining that. Thank you everyone for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero and make the most out of each and every day. Mike and I have gotten new leases on life, and life is precious no matter whether you
Mm.
have cancer, don't have cancer, because you never know when a health situation will come up.
That's right.
So appreciate what you do have. Appreciate the loved ones that you have, your family and your friends, because things could change in an instant for anybody, and we don't know when that's going to be. So
Yeah.
make the most out of each and every single day, each and every hour, each and every minute, and each and every second. And here's the commercial. Please subscribe, like, make a comment in the comment section of the video. And we will see you next week at To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.